People who confessed feeling to their crush. What happened afterwards? I was in grade 10. I told my crush that I liked him. He stared at me for a few seconds, gave me a high five, and walked away. We were best friends, and didn't talk about it again for a couple years. We are still really close and now it's just a funny story. She told me she was dating a friend of mine. Context: they were keeping the relationship quiet and didn't want anyone to know. I didn't know. Completely apologized. Backed off immediately. Spent a couple weeks at distance to get my feelings in order and let the awkwardness pass. We're still friends. How ridiculously mature of you. I'm really impressed. We had been texting and talking on and off for about 2 weeks, and I just stepped out and said, "Me, do you mind if I shift gears here and say something a little serious?" Her, "Go ahead." Me, "I like you. I mean, I really like you. I'm interested in you. You're the absolute best. I think you're beautiful. I am fascinated by the way you love being around people and they love being around you. I like you a lot. Her, "Well, you should know that I like you back." March 2008 conversation between me and my crush. Our 10th anniversary is in a little over 2 weeks. I kissed him. I asked if he wanted to be my boyfriend. He said yes, and that he was planning on asking me. Good thing I asked him first. We went out on a date because, as it turns out, she had a crush on me too. We've been happily married for 8 years now and just had our first child 3 weeks ago. Sometimes you just have to go for it. He never said a word, but then he had other things on his mind. The night I told him he was 3 days away from starting 18 weeks of chemo for his stomach cancer and facing a prognosis of 12 to 18 months. He'd said when things got bad for him he'd go away on his own. He's a big, bad, stubborn alpha as frick guy, and that's how he deals. So I had to tell him how I felt while I had the chance, cause I never know when it's gonna be the last time I see him. I'd just become single, and she was having breakup talks with her boyfriend. We'd worked together for months, became friends and helped each other through hard times. One day I had to tell her she was more than a friend to me, and to act otherwise felt dishonest. So I told her. She smiled, kissed my cheek and said, "Me too." The day she left him, we were watching trains pass and skipping rocks on the waterfront. We kissed next to the tumble roar of a freight train, and spent the night together with wine and hours of talking and laughing. Showed up to work next day tired but happy. Spent a few weeks in a confused bliss after our relationships had ended and we fell for each other. Then she moved away and boy am I pining over her. It was a bold move to tell her, but I'm grateful that I did. Move where she's moving. This actually just happened to me. He said that he'd keep it in mind and then we started talking about Mario Kart. I'm not expecting anything to come of it and that's more than fine. Hit him with triple red shells. She laughed at me and said, "Why the heck would I date a disabled boy when there are so many normal boys at the school? Are you stupid?" It came out of nowhere since we were in the same class. Talked all the time both in person and on Skype and I had no idea she of all people could be that hateful. Honestly, frick her. Sounds like an extremely shallow person. She agreed to make out with me, then we hooked up that night. 3 years later we married. Currently have a 4-year-old and very happy family. If I hadn't said something, none of this would have happened. That tiny amount of time where you said how you feel, it changed everything. He asked me out just before I could confess. He apparently had been thinking about asking me out for a couple days, but I had had a crush on him for a couple months. I invited him over for Christmas since he didn't have family in the state. I had no commitments, and generally didn't want to be alone due to some personal issues with an ex-roommate. He stayed. For some reason, he just pulled me against him on the couch and we just watched videos for hours. Then he asked me out. Shortly after, I admitted to the large crush I had on him and he was like, "Oh, I knew." I, female, told him that I had feelings for him immediately after getting out of a bad relationship. He said, "Oh, awkward," because he thought the guy was nice and would feel bad dating me. We still dated anyway, and got married in 2017. I was on the other side of this. Crush was confessed to me. I wasn't interested but wanted to stay friends. Over the next 6 months we became best friends. Then I developed feelings for him. Confessed my crush. 3 years later we're engaged. Rejection after rejection after rejection. Also, systematically got the "it's not you, it's me" response. Still single at 23. Got rejected 7 times now. Got rejected 7 times now. You gotta pump up those numbers. Those are rookie numbers. She said she didn't want a serious relationship, but still wanted to hang out. A week later I find her back with her ex. Bullet dodged. You can't dodge a bullet she wasn't shooting. Got ghosted, lost faith in all relationships, and now live in a van down by the river working as a motivational speaker. Just did it a week ago after a 17-year crush. She was crying and said she had a crush on me too. She is in a terrible relationship and has a child now. We have become closer since I told her. For anyone reading this, the worst thing that can happen is your crush says they don't feel the same way. Whoa, that's a story. Hope it goes well for both of you. I find your thoughts of me surprising but not creepy. No, but you are correct, I am definitely not a single girl, and unlike most women I do remain true to him. No sense in simply dating someone you don't plan an entire future and life with, ya know? Then 2.5 years later I spent a night getting drunk with her in her apartment and she was flirting with me but I was too scared to do anything about it. She doesn't know at all and I had this huge crush on her for years. It was my last chance to ever see her. She was walking with her friends and walked to her and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" She carried on walking and said no. And that was it. Capital F. He was in the middle of telling me he was starting to develop a crush for another person and I said, "Well, I'll be honest. I'm feeling a bit jealous because I've had a crush on you this whole time." He had no clue because I'm super bad at flirting and he figured I'd never be interested. Figured I just thought of him as a friend. Anyways, he completely abandoned that crush he had and we went out for 6 years but went our separate ways eventually on good terms. Still really good friends. Well, that was like an hour and a half ago and she is still 2 states away, with a hangover, and we just finished have a long talk about nudes, so I'd say it went pretty well. After returning home from a music festival at 3 AM my crush dropped me off at my place. I mustered the corsage to ask, "I guess this means we're a couple." She replied, "Number, we're just friends." I was crushed. It took 6 more years before we were married. Still married 27 years later. On the plus side, I bring this up every anniversary. Her response is, "You hadn't learned yet not to ask me serious questions at 3 AM. He didn't talk to me for a year. Over a decade later I'm pretty sure he's asexual but sometimes I wonder if I scared him away from everyone or something. I tried to run away, and he reached over to pull me in for another kiss. We'd been friends for several years by then, and now dating for 3 years. First time I ever did it, I was very harshly rejected. That was in 6th grade. Second time I was in 8th grade and it turns out they were gay and I discovered on Valentine's Day when I had something to give them to confess that they were dating my current best friend. They had a messy breakup not long afterwards. Third time I was a sophomore and it went very well and they kindly said that they were flattered but preferred to stay friends. Really goes to show how the maturity changed from being harshly rejected in 6th grade by an immature boy to being kindly thanked in high school. True, kids can be buttholes sometimes, not just with dating. I did confess to my crushes. Both times, it was unproductive. One time, a crush announced herself to me. Well actually, her friends did it for her because they were getting sick of her shenanigans. I told her, "Let's give it a try and see what happens." We went out for a drive with her friend and I tried to tell her that I was flattered. Something I said that evening fizzled it out, I believe, which is for the best because I wasn't attracted to her and it turns out her method of crushing was stalking me. Listen, if your crush makes you uncomfortable and they don't seem to notice you, forget it. If you have a zoing moment meeting each other's eyes, then that's a different thing. Keep returning and hanging around them and be friendly, and eventually something will happen. It might take years, so keep dating other people FFS. Not together anymore. Yes, this is real. I was 16 young and dumb. She was 15 smart and sweet. She said yes because we'll see each other more. When we grew apart I said we can still be cousins. Roll Tide. She rejected my wish for a relationship. She wanted to be just friends but I rejected her wish for a friendship. Not out of resentment, but self-preservation. Staying just friends would have been self-inflicted emotional pain. Bit of a funny story. When I was around 15-16, my best friend at the time had a crush on me. We're both males, I'm gay, and he's bi as far as I know. Just for context, I didn't correspond him at the time so I just tried to be nice without giving him too much hope. A year later, he got over me and was even dating some chick when he and his father got in a car accident. His father unfortunately passed away and he was hospitalized for a few weeks. I started visiting him almost every day and at some point I developed a major crush on him. A few months later, when he finally got back to school, I had the courage to tell him about my feelings towards him. And, well, as I said, he had really gotten over me at this point, so he didn't correspond to me anymore. Still, he was really sweet when I told him and he said that we'd been best friends for years and he wouldn't let this new feeling ruin this friendship in any way. He also said that I could take my time to get over it and it was okay if I wanted to keep a little distance for a while. Eventually I really did get over it, and we became just friends again. Sadly, it's been a few years since that happened and we don't really talk that much anymore, but still, I consider him a dear friend. About 3 years of awkward social interactions among our friend group as she constantly reminded me that she thought I was a good guy. Maybe someday. While I continued to be dumb enough to believe she just wasn't ready for anything and I should just continue being friendly and try not to make things weird. It was weird. I eventually moved cities looking for work, got married, 2 kids, fucked tons of debt but overall a good time. She's stayed in our small town. Gone hardline Christian conservative, and awful, and I'm pretty sure if I'd tried to actually have a relationship with her I'd probably have topped myself just to spite her. So, bullet dodged there. Don't get too hung up on your first teen crush, kids. I literally just posted this in a different thread but who cares. He said bad taste OP, but thanks. We stayed friends though. Okay, my story is as dramatic as it can get, and utterly foolish as well. So please bear with me. Back in the 3rd year of my college, I had a crush on this really tall, really cute guy. He was a year junior. From what I could gather from our frequent, unintentional encounters is that he had some sort of a liking for me too. His body language, his quick or lingering glances. This carried on for a year and then I became quite restless. I decided it was time to let him know and just get a little bit of spice going on in my otherwise dreadful monotonous college life. I wrote him a nice letter. Very cool, not at all gooey and sappy, I assure you. In that letter, amongst other things, I also mentioned an email address in case he wanted to contact me. I slid a letter into his bag and just waited. He replied after a couple of days. We played a Guess Who I Am. I can see you. You can't see me game the whole dang night before I decided that enough was enough and I could not keep him hanging for too long. We decided to meet the next day. I was way too nervous at first but calmed down when my friend offered to accompany me. We all sat in the library, confirming my true identity and planned to escape from his friends and the public to meet downstairs. So, this is what exactly happened. We exchanged numbers. He was apprehensive at first and wanted it to be very clear that he didn't want anything serious. Well, neither did I, sir. I was young and dumb and wanted a little bit of distraction in life. Over the next month he repeatedly confessed his crush on me and started talking all sappy and mushy, which I didn't like one bit. We used to meet every day, sneaking out from the class. We kept it a secret from everyone, which was exactly the kind of a thrill I wanted. We even kissed and hugged a couple times. It all went great. We were living in the moment. That is until he decided that we wanted to stop everything right where they are. And I realized the same too. I didn't want anything serious after all. He wasn't even my type of a person. I was just attracted to him physically. I was quick to realize this and agreed to let him go. So yeah, here you go. This is what really happened. It's rather lame if you ask me, but honestly, I don't really regret it. Character development, gotta say. So not me but a friend of mine did this to a girl he had a crush on during lunch sophomore year of high school. She was sitting with the popular group, which me and my friends were not. After my buddy shot his shot she tried to say no politely but the other popular kid started laughing, and she did too, and he walked away dejected and humiliated. Several years later, we were home from college one summer. The girl was dating an butthole who apparently fricked her over and humiliated her, and after this happened, she thought back to that day in high school when she humiliated my friend, and realized that she was wrong. She reached out to my friend and apologized, and they ended up hanging out. They became good friends. As the years went on, that friendship evolved into a relationship. Today they're happily married and have 3 kids. He said, "I think you're really pretty, smart and so funny. You're overall a wonderful person to be around. However, I only like you as a friend." I haven't had the nerve to speak to him again since then. That was 9 years ago. Whoops. I'm just saying that is the way to let a person down. Sucks for rejection, but at least he was mature. It was outside a party in high school. We both drove, so we were going to get our cars and bring them closer to the house to pick up our friends since it was pretty late and people were starting to leave. It was one of the last times I ever saw her and I had a feeling that would be the case, so I figured we were alone outside, no one would overhear us, so I worked up the courage to tell her. She was just speechless. She honestly had no idea how to react or what to say. She said she was flattered but it was a no from here, and she gave me a hug and got in her car. I did see her a couple times after that and it wasn't awkward, but we ended up at neighboring universities in the same city and she decided to block me on social media at that point. Hadn't spoken to her since we both left home, so I don't know why she did it, but maybe she felt like I might use her Instagram stories to try and stalk her or something. IDK. I don't think she ever told any of her friends what happened that night, or if she did it was kept well under wraps because it never came up. My friends never knew and no one else ever seemed to find out. I wasn't a loser in high school, but her and I were definitely at different places on the social ladder, so I think she was a bit embarrassed, especially thinking back to her initial reaction. No idea where she is now, but I hope she's doing well for herself. Needless to say, I am still very much single. I suspected he liked me because I overheard him telling someone he did in my limited comprehension of French. I asked him out to lunch to tell him my feelings. He ended up inviting another co-worker to join us. So I tried again later that week, explicitly asking to be just the 2 of us. He agreed, and as soon as we sat down I told him I had a crush on him. He did not respond to the statement, and then he proceeded to talk about anything and everything else for an hour. The entire time I wondered if he did not understand since English is his 3rd language. So at the end of lunch I tried again to tell him how I felt. He was really happy, but then he avoided me for the next several weeks. Anyhow, we have been married for 10 years now and have a kid together. Turns out, he was apprehensive about my feelings because he considered me out of his league and that I would change my mind at any moment. He did have to Google what crush meant too. All my crushes stay crushes. I tell them my feelings and they're flattered, but I have never, ever had a crush reciprocate the feelings. Then I remind myself, why would anyone like me anyway? Don't talk to yourself like that. Just improve yourself as a person. He wasn't interested at first, was worried about ruining a good friendship, then agreed to frick buddies, which lasted about 3 months. Then we became boyfriend-girlfriend for 5 years, then married 10 years, have 2 cute kids. Pretty good result. He said he wasn't interested. I thanked him for his honesty. Now he kind of avoids me and is pretty rude to me, so I think I may have actually dodged a bullet. If anyone's reading and they have a crush but are scared to tell them, just do it. Either they will like you back and you can start something, or they don't like you and you can't move on and stop worrying about what they think. Not a happy end. He rejected me, but it was fine. Well, some days later the whole class knew. I got texts and calls from his friends and even from people who I didn't even know, making fun of me. LOL. It happened some years ago, but still, I will probably never do that again because I don't want to get hurt. That sounds very crappy from their part. I hope you got past it and let it give you courage and see it as an experience. You miss 100% of the shots you never take. He was really physically attracted to me but didn't have feelings for me. He was respectful and honest with me. So, we had a sexual relationship. It was really freaking good and fun. I still liked him but got over it and healthily moved on. We're now pretty good friends. Not bad lol. Rejected multiple times. But the second I have a girlfriend she tells me she likes me. Please someone explain, I do not understand. He said thanks and 2 days later, stared me in the eyes as he stuck his tongue in a random girl's mouth at a party. Douche. One of my crushes, she told me she hated me and began talking behind my back about how she couldn't stand me and I was annoying and insignificant. She told my best friend how much she hated me and told everyone I was the most annoying person on earth. Even after I had done everything for her. I really don't care anymore tbh. I had a mad crush on this boy when I was 15. I had a friend ask if he liked me back, and once I was sure, I made my super seductive move. During school recess I asked if I could talk to him privately and let out my signature move. You know I like you, right? Combined with my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, palms are sweaty and I'm pretty sure my knees are about to give out. He said, yeah, I know. So what are we gonna do about it? I dunno, we could, like, go out or something. Nailed it. We've been together 6 years this coming December and got engaged on my birthday in February. You could say it turned out alright. D. Congratulations. I've told 2 crushes I liked them. The first one was in 8th grade and I just said frick it we ball and texted him, hey you know I like you right? He told me he figured and then proceeded to tell me he started talking to the girl that rejected him again and that he didn't like me back. But somehow right after I sent the text my feelings for him went away, so that was whatever and we still remained friends. A week later he told me he liked my best friend and I didn't really know how to react. I didn't care that he liked her, BC like whatever. But I felt like I should have cared and I still don't know why. The second one was recently and it sadly did not have the same effect. I began to like him maybe 10 months ago and I never really wanted to tell him because I didn't want to ruin our friendship. I've never met someone like this guy. When I was around him I had this strong feeling that he has such a heavy amount of potential. Whenever we talked I enjoyed it so much, he made me so incredibly happy. Around the end of the school year he told me he was moving again. He was only at my school for a year. He mentioned a few times it was his first time having a group of friends and that he was really sad to leave us. I told him that since he was only moving a few hours away that we'd invite him down as much as we could. Mostly it was BC I didn't want to lose such a wildly amazing person in my life. And I did. Parties, get-togethers, hangouts all throughout the summer that when he did show up he was always fashionably late. I never felt so strongly about someone before. And it wasn't even BC I had a crush on him. I just wanted him in my life. A few weeks before the new school year a mixture of my friends telling me to talk to him and that same feeling of frick it, we ball came over me. I told him and said that he didn't even realize. Which basically made him the only person that didn't catch on BC like everyone around me assumed. We had a long conversation and he was crazy sweet like always and I felt somewhat of a connection. But he never said how he felt about it. At first my friends told me that I need to find closure and that the conversation shouldn't have ended like it did. But I didn't want to make him feel obligated to say something he didn't want to, so I gave him time. So much time that I basically just put it off for a month. It weighed so much on my life and the inconclusiveness of it affected my mental health more than anything ever has. So, 2 weeks ago I asked him. I asked for what he thinks of our conversation months ago and for closure. He just kinda told me he had a girlfriend and friend-zoned me, which like obviously hurts but like whatever. I wanted to ask how long they've been dating and like if she isn't crap, but I didn't. BC I don't want to sound jealous or anything, even though I'm just genuinely curious and nothing else. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.